So tonight we're looking at Matthew chapter 5, verses 33 to 37. Matthew 5, 33 to 37. Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, "You shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn." But I say to you, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven, for it's the throne of God, or by the earth, for it's his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for this is the city of the great king. And don't take an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let what you say be simply yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil. Okay, so let's look at this closely then. Verse 33. Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, "You shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn." So Jesus is reminding his disciples of something they already know. They've already heard it being said. They already know that you shouldn't swear falsely, but instead you should perform to the Lord what you have sworn. So there's a certain kind of swearing being talked about here, a certain kind of oath or promise. And it's a promise to do something for the Lord. Because if you look, he's contrasting two things. On the one side, swearing falsely. On the other side, performing to the Lord what you have sworn. So in this context, what he means by swearing falsely is to say to God, "I will do this," and then not do it. That's swearing falsely. Do you understand? So the opposite of swearing falsely would be to make a promise to God and then fulfill that promise, do that promise. In other words, he's saying, you know that you should not make a promise to God unless you're going to keep it. If you make a promise to God, you must fulfill it. That's what Jesus is saying. He's telling them, you know this. Okay, now, where do they know this from? Who told them this? Because he says you've heard it said to those of old. In the past, this was said. Don't swear falsely, perform your vows to God. Where might they have heard it? Well, there's no actual verse in the Bible that says what Jesus says here. It's not one of the 10 Commandments. It's not there. It's more of a virtuous saying. It's a piece of good moral advice that people would say. And it's true, isn't it? Don't make promises to God that you will not fulfill. So Jesus is saying, you already know this. If you make a promise to God, do it. Fulfill it. But he doesn't leave it there, does he? He doesn't stop there. He wants to say more. And as we've been reading through this series of messages that he was giving his disciples in Matthew 5, we've seen that each time Jesus gives a basic rule that everyone already knows, but then he says, but now I want you to see how deep, how important, how serious, how thorough this rule is. He wants to get to the heart of the matter. Jesus always wants to ultimately speak to our heart, not just our behavior, but what's going on in our heart. And that's exactly what he's doing here. So he takes it further, doesn't he? He says, what I say to you is don't make an oath at all. Don't make an oath. So an oath, what's an oath? What's the difference between a promise and an oath? Let's look at the context. He says, I say to you, verse 34, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven or by the earth or by Jerusalem. You're attaching something to that promise to give it more weight, to make it seem more serious. So it's appealing to something to add weight to your promise. So already we've seen in verse 33 that Jesus is saying, look, you already know if you make a promise to God, then keep it. Don't retract on that promise. And now he's talking about promises where you're making a promise, but you're attaching something to it to try to give it more weight. And he's saying, don't do that. Don't attach anything to your promise. Don't promise by heaven, don't promise by the earth, don't promise by Jerusalem, don't promise by your own head, don't promise by whatever. Just say yes or no. Just say yes or no. Simple. So I want to back up a little bit. Now that we've seen the basic message that he's giving here, I want to back up a little bit. We've already made a promise to God, have we not? Everyone in this room is a Christian. So we've already made a promise to God. What did we promise to give him? Our life. When we prayed to Jesus to give our life to him, we gave our life to him. It's already his. All of it. He gave us his life, placed his spirit in us, and we gave him our life. We surrendered to God. When you surrender, you say, you win. It's all yours. We surrendered to God. So we've already surrendered to God in the new birth. We're new born again people. Our life belongs to him. We've promised him everything. It's all his. And then also I would say that as we walk with Jesus, every time he shows us something new, or every time he reminds us of an important truth, and we say, you're right, Lord, I agree with you, we're giving ourselves to him in that area. And so we can't take it back. We can't say, well, Lord, for example, last week you showed me that I should choose to not worry. So, Lord, I see that, so I choose to not worry. Oh, but this week I'm going to take that back and I'm going to start worrying again. We can't do that because that's going back on our word to God. It's breaking that promise, the promise that we made him to give him everything. So we have to be steadfast. We have to be immovable, absolutely rock solid. When we've given our life to God, it's his, all of it. And every area that he then shows us where we take his spirit into a new area of our life, we need to be faithful to that promise. Lord, this is yours. That's yours. My mind is yours. My hands are yours. My feet are yours. It's all yours. Not taking it back. And then we don't need to prove to God anything when it comes to what we're giving him, because it's his anyway. So why would I say, Lord, I promise by heaven that you can have my life, when it's his anyway? Why would we say, I promise, Lord, by the earth and all that's in it, that I'm giving you this area of my life? It's his anyway. We can just say yes or no to God. He knows our heart anyway. He knows what's in our heart. He knows we belong to him. It's a very simple way of living, where we understand, Lord, my life is yours, so I don't need to prove to you that I'm going to serve you, or that I'm going to love you, or that I'm going to listen to you, or that I'm going to obey you. I don't need to prove it to you, because my life's yours anyway. I'll just say, yes, Lord, or no, Lord. Hopefully not no, Lord. I'll just say, yes, Lord. Because you already belong to him, and every area of your life is already his. And so then Jesus says in the final verse, verse 37, let what you say be simply yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil. That's quite a strong statement. Anything more than this comes from evil. If we feel like we've got to prove to God how much we're going to obey him, or we've got to attach something to that promise, then that actually comes from evil. Why? Because, again, we already belong to God. And so if we feel like we've got to prove something to him, or attach some weight to our promises to him, then it's denying actually the strength of the relationship with him that we already have. It's denying the solidity of that relationship. So if we make promises to God, then we keep them. We don't go back on them. We've promised him our whole life. It's his, so we don't try and take it back. And then in every area of our life where his spirit enters the different areas of our lives, then we just say, yes, Lord, it's all yours. We don't have to prove to him that these areas belong to him, because they already do. And the beautiful thing about this is if we don't have to prove anything to God, we don't have to prove anything to anyone else either, or to the devil. Do you have to prove to God that you love him? No. Why? Because he knows. And because you've already given your life to him, he knows you love him. Do you have to prove to anyone else that you love God? No, because God knows. Do you have to prove to the devil that you love God? No. Think about it. Jesus said, you don't need to swear by heaven. Why? Because heaven is the throne of God. God is there already. You don't have to swear by the earth. Why? Because it's his footstool. God is there already. You don't have to swear by Jerusalem. Why? Because it represents Jesus' kingship. He's already the king. You don't have to swear by your head, because he says you can't make one hair of your head white or black. In other words, your life already belongs to God. It's already his. He's in charge. So if God is everywhere and he's already in all these things, then we don't need to try and appeal to them and bring them together and say, well, Lord, here's my promise to you. I'm giving you my life. And then you'll be able to really inhabit all these things, heaven, earth, my head. He's already there. It's already his. So let your yes be yes or no be no. In the context, he's not just saying, when you make promises to people, keep your word. I mean, that's true. But he's speaking about something much more specific here. He's speaking about promising our life to God, promising to obey God in a certain area. And he's saying, you don't need to make a big song and dance about it. Just do it. You already belong to him. It's already his life. Your life is already his. So you can just get on with it. Say, yes, Lord.
But shall perform to the Lord. Perform. I thought that was an unusual word choice. It sounds like it comes to mind like you're singing or dancing, like perform, make a show or something.
So if you're learning an instrument, you might do a performance. That's not necessarily a bad thing, is it? That you're taking what you've learned and then you're playing it in front of others, and you're playing it as well as you can because you want to give a good quality experience for yourself as much as for them. So I know the word perform can have negative connotations, like, oh no, now I've got to put on a show. But it depends what kind of show. You know, again, you've learned this and you want to bless other people with it and do it well. And I think that's more the way he's saying it. You know, we've given our lives to God, and we do want to, as Christians, live them well for him. As he says, you shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn. So it's a certain type of promise that's being made by the person. They're promising to perform something for the Lord. So the question is, did they need to promise to perform that thing for the Lord? The answer may be yes, it may be no. So, for example, last Thursday, I was not going to be going out preaching on the streets, but the Lord impressed on my heart, you need to go and preach on the streets on Thursday. So in my heart, I said, yes, Lord. I didn't say, I'm going to do it, Lord. I swear by heaven that I'm going to do it. Why would I need to do that? Because I belong to him. Like, why would I say no to him? And I don't have to prove the fact that I love him, and I'm going to go and perform what he's asked me to do. So there was no need for an oath or a vow. Just yes or no. And that's what this is getting to, really, ultimately. Did I perform for the Lord on the street? Yes, I did. I took everything in my heart, everything he was putting in my mind. I made sure that it was presented in a way that people could hear, etc. I made sure that when someone came up to us for help, I made sure that I was willing to spend 3 or 4 hours with them through the day. When the opportunity came to invite them to receive Christ into their heart, I made sure that I spoke and gave them that opportunity and prayed with them. So I did perform for the Lord. I didn't need to make any vows to promise to do that, because my yes is yes and my no is no, because I know that I belong to him. My life is already his. Every moment of every day is already his. So I don't need to embellish my walk with God with these special vows or promises or the like. We can distinguish at times between the right kind of vow to the Lord and the wrong kind. And Jesus did go further. He said, don't make any vows. You don't need to. Or if you do, just let them be as simple as this. Yes, Lord, I'll do it.
Like, would he rather someone genuinely say no to something he asks than to hype it up with the oath?
I believe you're right, because the yes reflects, Lord, my life is yours. So that's good. Mm-hmm. The no reflects, well, I think my life is my own. Well, God can correct that then and show you actually it's not.
Yeah.
But if you say, I'll do it, Lord, I promise by heaven, by earth, by my head, by Jerusalem, for whatever, then it's insincere. It's not dealing in the simplicity of either do what God said or don't do what God said. Either face the fact that your life is not your own, or imagine that it is. Don't overcomplicate it with all these vows.
It kind of looks a bit like, you know that bit in the Psalms where, well, the way you were explaining it anyway, it sounded like where it says, you know, if I go up, you are there. If I go down to Sheol, you are there.
That's right. Let's look at that. So Psalm 139, it's going to show us and remind us that we already belong completely to God, that he's all around us and behind us, in front of us. And so why do we need to try and prove anything to him when it's already all his anyway? O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You hem me in, behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain it. Where shall I go from your spirit, or where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you're there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you're there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand will lead me, and your right hand will hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light about me be night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is bright as the day, for darkness is as light to you. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, my soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there were none of them. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God, how vast is the sum of them. If I would count them, they are more than the sand. I awake and I am still with you. Oh, that you would slay the wicked, O God. O men of blood, depart from me. They speak against you with malicious intent. Your enemies take your name in vain. Do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord? And do I not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them with complete hatred. I count them my enemies. Search me, O God. Know my heart. Try me. Know my thoughts. And see if there's any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. So in this psalm, we're reminded that God knows us completely. He knows our heart. He knows our mind. He knows our thought. He knows our actions. He knows us completely. So we don't need to prove anything to him. He's already there in every aspect of our life. We already are his, and every area of our life is his already. And that's why our relationship with God can just be simple in that way, of just, yes, Lord, because he's already there in all those areas. We don't need to prove anything or try and find a way of making our love for him seem more weighty. We don't need to. He knows us intimately. Our relationship with him is solid, it's deep, it's weighty, and that's the truth of it. So Jesus is trying to strip away from the disciples all the unnecessary energy and effort that they're putting into trying to have a relationship with God. And he's saying, look, you already belong to him. You've already given your heart to him. So let's just walk with him. Let's just be in that sense, simple in our approach. Let's say yes, Lord, when he needs us to say yes to him. When he needs us to say no, let's say no. Whatever he needs us to do, then we do. Simple as that. And it's a very secure place to be when you know, I have nothing to prove to God. I don't have to prove anything to him. You know, lots of Christians spend lots of energy trying to show God how much they love him. Lots of Christians make all kinds of promises. Lord, I'm going to show you I love you by not doing this or by doing that. He says, why are you doing this? You've already given me your life. I know you love me. So just walk with me. So the biggest promise that we've ever made to God is when we said, Jesus, have my life. However we said that, or in whatever context. That promise is already made. It's already a yes to God. That's it. We just carry on in the light of that promise. And we can see Jesus underlining that in the examples he gives, underlining the fact that he's already present in everything to do with our lives. That's why he says, don't swear by heaven, because it's his throne. He's already there. Don't swear by earth, because it's his footstool. He's already here. Don't swear by Jerusalem, which they used to swear by that, because that was their center of their religious life. He's saying, don't swear by that, because there's already a king there, whose name is actually Jesus. Don't swear by your head, because your life already belongs to God. You've got no control over, making your hair white or black. Well, you do if you use dye, but the point is, you know what he's saying. You can't change. There's things you can't change, but they're in God's hands. So he's already there. So we don't need to prove it. We don't need to try and get him to come into those areas by promising this and promising that and promising the other. So I'm going to read it through one more time. Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn. But I say to you, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven, for it's the throne of God, or by the earth, for it's his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it's the city of the great king. And do not take an oath by your head, for you can't make even one hair white or black. Let what you say be simply yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil.